Philosophies Revived.
Have you ever felt as if there's a secret switch in your mind that other people seem to access without you even noticing? One day, you're completely certain about your preferences and choices. Then suddenly, you find yourself drawn to some brand new product you never planned on buying, or you end up supporting an idea that you only half understand. It feels a little eerie, doesn't it? Today, we're lifting the veil on a long-forgotten text from 1895 that dared to expose the exact ways the masses get manipulated. That text is Gustave Le Bon's The Crowd, a study of the popular mind, and it nearly vanished from the public sphere for spelling out, in startling clarity, how leaders, corporations, and institutions can guide your behavior without you suspecting a thing. The book they tried to erase. A question naturally arises. Why would a dusty old publication from 1895 be deemed so dangerous that people sought to hide it away? The answer rests in Le Bon's piercing insights about power. During a period marked by shaky monarchies and emerging democracies, these revelations were akin to handing anyone the key to sway large groups. Dictators were drawn to it for lessons on stirring crowds. Business moguls realized it was a roadmap for selling everything from household goods to grand ideologies, and intelligence circles understood they could leverage it for covert operations. You might wonder how something so antique could still matter. Yet much like the wheel, some discoveries are simply too fundamental to ever fade away. Why it's labeled a blueprint. Le Bon clarified why a single commanding figure could rally an entire population in a remarkably short span, or how massive brands can ignite instant mass devotion the moment a new product hits the shelves. He recognized that crowds function as a distinct entity, almost like a living organism. When an individual merges into a larger group, they're no longer just themselves. They become part of a collective mind that opens the door for shared emotion to eclipse logical thought as people latch onto group sentiments instead of individual reasoning. This blueprint matters because once a leader identifies those triggers, they can predict and steer group behavior like a choreographer directing dancers on a stage. Why fear and hype endlessly dominate it? Think about the steady stream of anxiety-inducing news headlines or the ongoing frenzy over the newest gadget. None of that is accidental. Le Bon observed that crowds are governed mostly by emotion rather than rational thinking. Fear spreads quickly because it plays on our survival instincts, while excitement is just as compelling because it creates a sense of belonging. The minute a few prominent voices or trusted figures trumpet a message, be it a threat or the next hot trend, people jump on board. It's like being in a crowded stadium. Once everyone begins cheering, you feel a magnetic urge to cheer along, even if you hardly know why. Invisible threads of programming. Have you ever hummed along to a TV jingle you can't stand, or repeated a catchphrase from a commercial you only half watched? That's the effect of repetition at work. In group dynamics, repeating a concept enough times embeds it deeply into people's minds until they accept it, often without questioning its validity. Politicians chant phrases to the point of exhaustion. Corporations blast slogans wherever they can fit them, and after a while, these messages feel normal, almost like unspoken truths that have always been there. Who's pulling the strings? Powerful entities make use of this playbook with remarkable efficiency. Governments leverage it to gather unified support, whether for national policies or something more dramatic. Corporations harness it for relentless brand loyalty and increasing sales. Media channels bank on your constant attention, and in the digital realm, attention equals profit. Picture a puppet show where each puppeteer has different motives, but all of them succeed by making sure you keep dancing to their tune. If you're not aware, you remain on that stage, wholly unaware of the script or the final act. Living on autopilot. Think about those times when you just go with the flow. Large groups don't typically encourage each individual to be an independent thinker, so most people conform. If your entire social group obsesses over a brand, you may start to like it too, if only to fit in. Le Bon highlighted the contagious nature of crowd emotion, which spreads with a force that's almost irresistible. Going along with the crowd can feel like choosing the easier, more comfortable path. It avoids the friction that comes with questioning everything, though that friction might be exactly what we need to stay aware. Crowds crave a leader. One of Le Bon's central observations was that crowds almost instinctively look for a guiding voice. Whenever someone appears on the scene with a commanding presence and a straightforward message, people tend to follow with striking loyalty. It offers a sense of direction, a feeling of unity, and the comfort of not having to make decisions alone. That readiness to follow is precisely why so many individuals throughout history, both well-intentioned and otherwise, have managed to gain massive followings that echo their slogans without hesitation. Why this blueprint is so effective? Just as a person learns a dance by observing and imitating, crowds operate similarly on an emotional and cognitive level. When you witness your peers embracing a new idea with passion, it's tempting to imitate them, even if you have doubts. Social scientists label this phenomenon herd behavior. In the past, it was a key survival tactic. If everyone sprinted from a threat, you'd run too. Today, that primal response can be hijacked by marketing campaigns, political rallies, or online hype fests that trigger you to buy in, whether or not there's real substance. Symbolism and imagery. Symbols, whether they're corporate logos, national flags, or revered icons, carry immense power. Le Bon pointed out that they can stir deep emotions more effectively than facts or data. A country's banner can ignite patriotic unity, and a luxury label can evoke a craving for status. A simple image can become a shortcut to feeling pride, fear, belonging, or exclusion, depending on how it's used. Marketers and political strategists understand this and use it with precision, planting symbols where you'll see them constantly, so the emotional triggers become second nature. The modern stage, social media. The dynamic of the crowd has expanded in ways Le Bon could scarcely have imagined, thanks to social platforms. Each platform is like a digital coliseum where influencers, celebrities, and politicians rally massive online armies. One post can spark a tidal wave of reactions in minutes. These huge virtual gatherings intensify Le Bon's original discoveries, revealing that technology isn't changing our psychology, but instead amplifying instincts that have always been there. The mantra of repetition. People have long noted that messages repeated frequently take on an appearance of truth. Le Bon drew particular attention to the importance of constant repetition in keeping crowds aligned and devoted. When people hear a statement again and again, they gradually surrender to it. Advertisements bank on that principle, as do propagandists and leaders of various stripes. After a while, the brain stops questioning and simply accepts the repeated phrase or idea as common sense. Echo chambers. Over a century ago, Le Bon effectively foresaw what we now call echo chambers. When you only interact with viewpoints that reinforce your own beliefs, those beliefs grow stronger. In our digital world, social media algorithms do the filtering for us, showing us more of what we already like. The result is a distorted sense of consensus. People feel as though everyone else agrees with them, while opposing voices are muted. This uniformity might feel reassuring, but it also isolates entire groups from other perspectives, which can lead to misunderstanding, conflict, or worse. Simplified statements and grand promises. Candidates and thought leaders often rely on catchphrases that are easily chanted. Complexity doesn't move a crowd to cheer. Concise, emotionally charged slogans do. Change, hope, take back, control. These words animate enormous gatherings because they're short, memorable, and stir strong feelings. The details fade, as people become fixated on the repeated message. Complexity and nuance rarely survive in the sea of chanting. Beware the authority figure. Most of us lower our guard the moment someone in a lab coat or tailored suit starts speaking. Le Bon observed that authority, whether genuine or manufactured, easily overrides skepticism. When someone is labeled expert or leader, people tend to accept their words without scrutiny, trusting the image more than the evidence. That's how misinformation slips through the cracks. We pay attention to credentials, podiums, and titles, rather than digging into substance. Divide and conquer. One of the more troubling tactics exposed by Le Bon is how creating divisions among groups actually strengthens control. If two large crowds are locked in conflict, each side becomes more protective of its own identity and more reliant on its leaders. Politicians leverage division to solidify voter bases. Media outlets benefit from heated debates, and major brands ride waves of rivalry to maintain customer loyalty. The resulting tension keeps people busy fighting each other instead of questioning the bigger influences at work. Personal life implications. Mind control may sound like a big dramatic concept, but it also seeps into casual settings. Friend circles, workspaces, and family gatherings operate like miniature crowds. Peer pressure nudges you to say yes when you want to say no. Office groupthink can shut down innovative ideas to maintain the status quo. Even at home, you might let your true opinions slide to keep things harmonious. These smaller scale dynamics are still part of the same phenomenon, just on a less grandiose stage. The trap of emotion, stirring fear, euphoria, anger, or loyalty, is the easiest route to bending a crowd's will. With emotions running high, logical thinking is often the first casualty. If a person or institution consistently triggers these feelings, they can subtly lead your decisions, bypassing rational analysis. It's like a radio dial that's always tuned to the strongest station. If that station is broadcasting fear or excitement non-stop, it's difficult to break away, escaping the crowd's pull. Reading Le Bon's work shows not just how manipulation happens, but also hints at how we can free ourselves from it. The initial step is simple awareness. If you know these tactics exist, you can spot them, much like noticing the wires on a puppet. Once you've seen the wires, you can't easily unsee them. Recognizing that you're being influenced allows you to step back and assess whether you actually agree or if you've just been swept along. Reclaiming your individuality. Crowds thrive on absorbing a person's sense of self into the larger group identity. Pulling away from that requires introspection about what you genuinely believe and value. Ask if you're following a trend because it resonates with you or because it's what everyone else is doing. Ask if your positions on issues come from personal conviction or from echoing what friends and family say. This type of reflection is essentially a detox for your mind, clearing out any borrowed beliefs that don't match your authentic self. Questioning experts. Healthy skepticism doesn't mean rejecting all expert opinions. It means refusing to accept them at face value. Check a person's track record, look for conflicting data, and see if they're open to debate. True professionals are rarely threatened by well-researched questions. Individuals who get defensive or evasive might be relying more on the aura of expertise than on actual knowledge. Learning to tune out noise. Modern life bombards us with non-stop updates, headlines, and notifications. This constant stimulus can be a breeding ground for crowd manipulation. To counteract that, consider scheduling regular breaks from news and social media. Take time to reflect without the buzz of digital chatter. Just like you wouldn't eat junk food every minute of the day, your brain also needs healthy downtime to think clearly and find balance. Welcoming opposite opinions. Seeking out contrasting viewpoints can feel uncomfortable, but it's a powerful antidote to groupthink. If everyone around you agrees with you, you may be living in an echo chamber. Try exploring ideas you typically oppose. You might learn something, or at the very least, sharpen your own arguments by understanding alternative perspectives. It's mental exercise that strengthens your capacity for independent thought. Catching emotional surges. Before responding to something that fuels immense anger, exhilaration, or dread, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself what's really driving that feeling and who, if anyone, benefits from it. Recognizing that your emotional buttons are being pushed can neutralize the manipulative effect. It's akin to stepping outside yourself to say, wait, why am I feeling this so intensely? Becoming the author of your story. In a world where everyone else is eager to take the reins of your mind, it's crucial to craft your own script. Think of your headspace as a narrative only you can write. Journaling can be a huge help, giving you a space to articulate your beliefs in your own words. Determine your personal guiding principles and keep them in focus, instead of being defined by whichever crowd happens to be the loudest. Why many people resist? The reality is, self-awareness and critical thinking demand serious effort. It's simpler to stay in the comfort zone of group consensus. Rejecting herd mentality can alienate friends or cause tension at work. Yet if you've made it this far, you already suspect that the alternative living as a pawn to others' agendas carries a much steeper cost. This is your chance to step off the automatic conveyor belt. The ripple effect of independent thinking. Once you begin standing on your own convictions, you'll likely inspire others to do the same. Think of it as a spark of light in a dim room. One flame can encourage another until the entire space brightens. You don't have to force anyone to open their eyes. Just by living out your awareness, you show that it's possible to resist mindless crowd behavior. A simple exercise. Try taking one belief you hold dear and diving into why you believe it. Study the opposite perspective, even if it makes you uncomfortable. You don't have to switch sides, but you'll be practicing the mental flexibility Le Bon advocated for. You might refine your original stance or discover new angles you hadn't considered. Either way, you're exercising a form of intellectual autonomy. Observing groupthink in real time. Stay alert the next time you're part of a lively discussion, whether it's with friends or colleagues. Note how quickly people gravitate to whichever opinion is expressed confidently. Observe who sets the emotional tone and how the rest align. You'll likely recognize tactics straight from Le Bon's pages. Once you see it, it becomes much harder to be blindsided by it. What leaders don't want you to know? Political figures and corporate heads bank on the fact that most of us don't bother examining century-old psychological studies. Modern technology might give us new tools, but our emotional wiring is largely the same. We still respond to authority, crave security, and join in collective enthusiasm. That's why the crowd remains eerily relevant today. If anything, it's more pertinent now that global media and high-speed communication can magnify crowd influences on an unimaginable scale. How to take the next step. Knowing about the 1895 text and the framework it describes is one thing. The more pressing question is how you'll integrate these insights into your life. You can slide back into casual scrolling and autopilot decision-making, or you can choose the path of more mindful engagement. The world is full of people who'd rather you stayed unaware, but it only takes one moment of clarity to disrupt that cycle. A vision of collective awareness. Picture a community where more people ask, "Why do I think this?" Or "Who profits if I continue believing it?" That might sound utopian, yet it's how genuine change starts. Instead of blindly following or clinging to old narratives, individuals ask questions, share discoveries, and hold each other accountable. A society of critical thinkers is far harder to manipulate than a crowd guided by emotional impulses. Your invitation. If you've made it through this breakdown of the strategies laid out in the crowd, you're clearly open to learning more about how group dynamics shape us. There's a simple action you can take to solidify your commitment to personal awareness. Add a comment about a part of this discussion that made you see your beliefs or habits in a new light. Putting that insight in writing is a powerful step toward owning your mental space. Master or be mastered. Le Bon showed us a world where crowds are surprisingly easy to direct if you know which emotional levers to pull. Your choice is to be one of those who notice the manipulation or one of those perpetually swept up in it. You don't have to become cynical or power-hungry. You only need to defend your own mind and your own right to decide what you think. It all begins with realizing you have a choice. A parting thought. Overcoming the pull of the crowd doesn't demand advanced degrees or fearless rebellion. It simply requires staying curious, asking honest questions, and acknowledging that you're allowed to shape your beliefs rather than have them shaped for you. Even if there's chaos and propaganda swirling all around, that personal clarity can serve as your anchor. The moment you catch sight of the blueprint, you can no longer be forced to follow it without your permission.